House Agriculture Committee member Representative Austin Scott is a Republican from Georgia who also serves as chairman of the Subcommittee on General Farm Commodities, Risk Management, and Credit. He says both livestock and crop production in his district were impacted by Hurricane Helene.
So there's tremendous damage. If you go into Coffee County or Douglas, you've got about 160 chicken houses that are totally wiped out that feed an integrator that is the largest employer in the county. It'll take a long time for those houses to get rebuilt and places for the chickens to grow out and again to supply that integrator there. You've got tremendous amount of cotton damage when you go to the east. You've got tremendous amount of timber, pecan orchards. We think that we've lost somewhere close to 50,000 pecan trees. I think it's the last number that I saw, and it is. It's just astronomical, the damage, and some of it, a lot of it, especially from the standpoint of timber in the orchards, is generational.
And you, along with the Georgia delegation and more than 30 other lawmakers, wrote a letter asking for disaster aid for those producers affected by Hurricane Debbie, and then another letter for those affected by Hurricane Helene. Can you kind of describe the asks in those letters, and what are the unique impacts to your producers with multiple massive storms triggering these disaster aid payments in such a short amount of time?
Sure. So our ask is kind of threefold. One is give us time before we go back in and pass a disaster package. Give us time for the land grant institutions to do the damage assessment and give us the actual estimates on the ground, from the land grants who actually know how to do this with their extension agents, again, on the ground in the fields, so that we know what the actual damage is to the crops, and not just the total damage, but kind of the breakdown by commodity group. Then we want to obviously use those numbers to be numbers from the land grant institutions to put together what would be an ag-specific appropriation in the disaster package. And then, and this is where it's key, and this is a lesson learned from Hurricane Michael, we need to make sure that the ag-specific package moves with the global disaster relief package. And what we saw in Hurricane Michael was when the ag package didn't move at the same time, it was approximately 24 months before we were able to get an ag package passed. Times are already tough for the American farmer, regardless of where you are. And I'll tell you, our producers can't survive 24 months without something being done.
And what are you hearing about the size and timing of that disaster aid package?
Well, certainly we expect it to be done before the end of the year. If you look at Georgia alone, Georgia's direct losses are about $3 billion. Some of that will be insured. And that's, again, something we'll be waiting on a combination of the university and RMA to give us those numbers. So the loss is much bigger than Michael was for Georgia. I expect it will be much bigger than Michael was for Florida. And so our hope is that we would be done before the end of the year. And that way the block grants can be given out, hopefully to the producers. As soon as we get that money to the states, I would think that within 45 to 60 days, the states could have a formula together to push those funds out to the producers.
There's still some frustration on Capitol Hill and among farm groups about the way the last disaster aid package was structured, saying it shortchanged farmers with the largest losses. We asked Georgia Congressman Austin Scott what should be done to ensure farmers are fairly compensated when Congress is writing a new disaster aid package.
Nobody's going to be made whole. I don't want to pretend that when we go back to Washington, people are going to come out of this disaster better off than they were before we went in it. But again, from the standpoint of orchards and timber and fruits and vegetables, those things that there really isn't an insurance product for through USDA, the only way to have an equitable treatment to those producers is going to be through the block grants to the states. And so we take those estimates from the land grants that they have tremendous credibility with the producers. They have tremendous credibility with me as a member of Congress and other members of Congress. They give us the numbers that we need to go to the appropriators, people that aren't from our part of the world, and explain to them, why this is an appropriate number for the disaster relief. That number needs to move, and we won't get 100% of it, but what we can get, we need to make sure that appropriation moves specific to agriculture at the same time that FEMA, SBA, and the others move.
And Representative Scott, do you think putting the Farm Bill in with the disaster package eliminates the need to offset the higher spending in the Farm Bill? And do you think this is something that the House would go along with?
Well, I think they're two different issues. I think the disaster package would cover what has happened, up to and until now. The key to the American farmer in the House passed, what we passed to the House Agriculture Committee, is the increased reference prices. And what that does is it sets the value at where, some commodity support would trigger for the American farmer if commodity prices fall a certain percentage below break even. Now, you haven't seen a bill move out of the Senate, and you haven't seen us move the bill across the House floor. And I was a little taken back that I think 4 Democrats on the House Ag Committee voted for the piece of legislation, and the rest of them voted against it. So we haven't had the traditional bipartisan support that we would normally have for the Farm Bill coming out of the Democratic Party, and that's been pretty frustrating to me. And some of the accusations that they've made are pretty frustrating to me. Let me say it this way: we don't have a Farm Bill that recognizes the inflation that has occurred in the inputs over the last several years for the American farm family. So if we pass the Farm Bill in November or December when we get back up there, and it recognizes that, and the same thing happened in October of next year, then hopefully the disaster payment wouldn't be as big. But you've still got timber, you've still got orchards, you've still got fruits and vegetables, you've still got a lot of commodities out there that provide tremendous portions of our economy in rural America that you really don't have insurance products for. And even with a good Farm Bill, it would take a couple of years, I think, before those insurance products hit the market and got to the producer.
Representative Scott, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.